When
Y'all can be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and jump right back into it. Defense, you ready with your next witness?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us your name and spell it for the court.
Yes, my name is Samantha Spencer, S-A-M-A-N-T-H-A, Spencer, S-P-E-N-C-E-R.
Spencer, what's your occupation?
I am an independent forensic consultant.
Tell us what that means.
So that means I mostly help educate attorneys on the forensic science process. I focus in the fields of forensic biology, or DNA and serology, and crime scene reconstruction.
Do you have a scientific background?
I do.
What was your education?
So I received a Bachelor's of Science degree from Erskine College in Due West, South Carolina in 2009. After I received that degree, I went on to work at a genetics center that I helped diagnose mostly children with rare genetic diseases. I then accepted a position with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation as a special agent forensic scientist within the forensic biology unit. And then I was also a member of the violent crime response team. During that time, I also got a graduate certificate in the field of forensic DNA and serology from the University of Florida.
How did you get involved with TBI?
So again, I applied and accepted the position when they offered it to me.
Good morning, good
I
morning.
participated in training there that all TBI agents go through for both to become a forensic scientist and a member of the violent crime scene team.
What would your position be called?
I was a special agent forensic scientist.
What did that involve?
So for the most part, that involves just working evidence. So when evidence comes into the lab, I would accept it from the evidence receiving unit, take it back to my space in the lab, and then perform my testing, which included serology testing and DNA testing.
Hey, Granny. Hey, Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea. I've been missing you.
Testimony in court concerning your findings.
Yes, I did.
And how often did that happen?
I believe a little over 20 times.
And did that include offering opinions on the results of DNA testing?
Yes, it did.
Oh, man, I made the wrong one go live. Oh, wow.
Did you eventually leave the TBI?
How did I do that?
I did. I accepted a position over at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in their Shared Resource Center. So I was helping all of the researchers at St. Jude look at DNA analysis. And then in 2018, and another former TBI agent decided to form the company that we have now, SEP Forensic Consultants, where we offer education and knowledge to attorneys in these fields.
And have you continued testifying in courts since leaving the TBI?
Yes, I have.
And how often have you done it since you left the TBI?
A little over 20 times. I believe this is my 48th opportunity to testify.
And have you had judges recognize you as an expert in the area of forensic biology and DNA testing?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever had a judge refuse to accept you or recognize you as an expert in that field?
No, I have not.
When have you testified on behalf of the state of Tennessee when you were at TBI?
Correct.
And how did you get paid for that?
It was my salary that I got. The state of Tennessee paid for it.
And have you charged now that you're no longer with TBI?
Yes, I take funding from both the state of Tennessee for indigent clients if they do not have the funding, and then I also take private funding from people who can fund it.
And how are you getting paid in this case?
So I'm getting paid through PORAC, which is the legal defense fund for police officers.
Is there any difference in what you do for private individuals and what you do for the government in terms of what you get called on?
No, not really, especially in my testimony portion. The main difference is I don't have a lab right now. It costs millions of dollars to have a DNA lab, so I don't have the equipment to do that. But so I don't touch the evidence and necessarily process it, but I do go through the whole process looking at the data that is produced by the lab.
And do you maintain a resume?
I do.
Your Honor, may I approach? Sir. Let me show you a document, and see if you can identify that for us.
Yes, sir.
Is that your resume?
It is.
Your Honor, I would mark that as the next exhibit.
Any objection?
No, sir.
So the 6-page resume that Spencer had is exhibit 34.
Say 34, Your Honor.
Yes.
So, Ms. Spencer, what did we ask you to do in this situation?
So like in most cases I get called about, it is looking at the data that was produced by TBI or any forensic lab and reviewing it and then determining what conclusions I would come up with, and then again helping the attorneys understand what those conclusions mean.
I want to show you a document that's been marked as Exhibit 30 in this case. See if you can identify that for us.
Yes, sir.
And is that, what is that?
So this is the official forensic biology report issued by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
And are you familiar with the person who actually authored that report?
Yes, I reviewed her work.
And is that somebody you worked with at TBI when you were there?
Yes, since I was in the Memphis lab at the time, she works in the Nashville lab, so we didn't work directly with each other, but we worked together, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would tender Ms. Spencer as an expert in forensic biology through DNA analysis.
Your Honor, there's no objection. Forensic biology through DNA.
Yeah, through DNA.
So tender.
So, tell us, what is forensic biology?
So forensic biology can really be broken down into these 5 steps. We have evidence, serology, DNA analysis, interpretation, and then review. So overall, it's the process of finding hopefully a body fluid and then eventually making interpretations on that DNA that was found on that item of evidence.
And so you have the body fluid, would you know where the body fluid came from?
So yes, once we get into the serology portion, you start looking at specific items of evidence, and then you would be able to identify where you obtained that body fluid from.
Now, what is it that you, as an analyst in this case, consider to be evidence?
So myself, as an independent forensic consultant, I'm mostly considering my evidence to be the documentation and data provided by the forensic lab. So in this case, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. On top of all their data and the reports they issued, sometimes I also get things like medical examiner reports, videos from body-worn camera footage or surveillance video, and investigative documentations produced by law enforcement.
And are there other sources of information that you gather other than just documents?
Yeah, again, mostly I'm focusing on the DNA analysis. So that's what my main focus is looking at all of the data produced by the forensic lab.
And that's when you begin once you have all that, that's when you begin your routine that you go through in trying to reach a picture.
Correct, yes.
Let's just start with serology. Tell us about serology.
So if I was working in the lab and looking at an item of evidence, the first thing I typically would do is to look for a body fluid. And serology is the study of body fluids. In forensics, we mostly focus on blood, semen, and saliva. And the reason we focus on those three body fluids is because we know that they contain a good amount of DNA. So we know that once we go through the DNA process, we have a good chance of getting an informative DNA profile that we can actually make some conclusions from. So there's three general steps that we go through for serology testing. The first is screening, which means we're just looking at this item of evidence either with our naked eye or with some help. And we're just narrowing down some areas that we want to test. We then do a presumptive test, which is just indicating to us that a body fluid is present. And then we can do a confirmatory test, which will confirm that that body fluid is present.
And how do you, is this things that you get from the TBI?
So again, this isn't me doing this right now. This is what I would do when I was in the lab. This is me looking at an actual item of evidence and doing these tests.
But the TBI report would cover all these various items.
Correct. This is exactly what TBI did in all of the evidence submitted in this matter.
And then how do you use the results of these tests?
So what I use with these results is it helps me indicate or confirm whether or not a body fluid is present. So once I know whether or not a body fluid is present, I'm then going to use that information along with the DNA results to make an overall conclusion using all of the data that we have available.
So once you get the body fluid, then you go to the DNA analysis?
Yes, so once you identify a body fluid on an item of evidence, you're usually going to take a sampling. Now or can we go back one slide? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Good morning, everybody that's coming in. Please hit the like button.
Sometimes if there's not a body fluid, you can just sample an area for what's called trace DNA. So you didn't find anything, it was negative, so you're going to take a Q-tip and kind of run it over the area and collect any DNA that may be there. So after we have that sample that's either has a body fluid on it or that we're just taking that trace DNA from, we're going to take a cutting from it and then go into our DNA process.
Okay. So now, do I go
Yes,
to
sir.
the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this is our DNA process. So first, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the recipe of what makes you, you. So it tells your body everything from your hair and eye color down to your predisposition for diseases. So it is specific to an individual unless you have an identical twin. And we use it in forensics to help identify individuals because it is specific to an individual. So these are the general steps in the DNA process after serology.
So, in extraction, what happens?
So extraction is the first step of the DNA process. This is the step that we've found that body fluid, or we've taken a sample from that item of evidence, and we're now going to take that cutting, put it in a tube, and what's called lyse, or open up any cells present, cells such as epithelial cells, skin cells, break those open and pull out the DNA and clean away any cellular debris left over. So we eventually end up with a tube that it just has DNA in it.
So if we were there at the TBI and we looked at the results of that extraction, what would we see in your hand?
It would just look like water.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a small test tube?
Yeah, in a test tube that's about this big, it would just look like water.
And is that all the DNA that you have to work with in any particular testing?
Yes, when we do that extraction step right there, that's the DNA that we're going to work with for the rest of the time, and that's what we've taken from that item of evidence.
So do you ever find yourself having to monitor how much you actually use for one test or another to make sure you have plenty of the evidence?
Yeah, so part of the process of extraction is making decisions on how much water or chemicals you're going to put that DNA in. But through the process, we have specific amounts that we use through that, so we're not using it all up. As a forensic scientist, my goal is not to consume a sample. I want to make sure there's some left over, either if I make a mistake or if somebody else needs to process that sample in the future. So yes, we use a small amount every time and don't use it up.
So after extraction, what happens next?
So after extraction, we have quantitation, and that kind of sounds like what it is we're trying to determine how much DNA is there, the quantity of DNA present in our tube. So not only does it give us the total amount of DNA present in that sample, but it also gives us the amount of male DNA in that sample, a male to female ratio, and a degradation index. The degradation index just tells us how much the DNA may be damaged.
And what are you looking for with the quantification?
So the main point of quantification is that it really helps with the downstream application, steps 3 and 4, because we're going to target a specific amount of DNA to go into those steps. It also gives us an idea, again, of how much DNA is present in this sample. Again, if we're looking at our serology results and it's indicating that a body fluid is present, I'm going to look at those serology results and see if that's consistent with a body fluid.
And the next step is amplification?
Yes, so amplification is a fancy science word for making copies. So what we're doing in this step is we're making copies of specific areas on the DNA that we've extracted and figured out how much DNA we have.
You mean like 5 or 6 copies?
We're making millions of copies, and we're making millions of copies of what's called short tandem repeats. These are those specific areas we're going to focus on. And they're areas on the DNA that we know just repeat over and over again. So we make millions and millions of copies of those, and it's essentially just like you taking a piece of paper and copying it on a copier. Just going to continue to make copies of it.
How do you know when to stop?
There's validations are done, and again, we're targeting a specific amount of DNA. So we know that this amount of DNA takes this long to make this many copies of. And we have set protocols of how we're going to make copies of the DNA.
And the next step is separation?
Yes, this is our final step in the DNA process. So like I said, we just made millions of copies of different areas of those short tandem repeats on the DNA. So now we have to separate them. So we separate them based on size and charge. And at the end of this process, this instrument here will take basically a picture of the DNA, which will be what we use during interpretation. And that picture is basically, you can go to the next slide. It's a bunch of peaks and numbers that we use. And these, let me get this will help. Can't see it. Those boxes on the top, you see that are in green and yellow, those labeled ones, those are all the specific areas that we made copies of, and those are what we're going to compare. So those peaks and numbers below, that's what we use to make a comparison.
So you sort of overlay on the comparison?
Somewhat, yes.
And so what's next?
So what's next is the interpretation step. I failed to mention that we have kind of 2 sets of samples when we're doing DNA analysis. We have those evidentiary samples, things that came from the crime scene or from individuals involved in the incident, but we also collect standards from people. Standards, if you've watched any crime show, you've seen somebody take a big Q-tip and run it on the inside of their cheeks. That's a buccal standard. And all that is for us to know what that person's DNA profile is, so we can eventually compare it to our evidentiary samples. So our interpretation step first starts out with ensuring that everything went well. We look at controls that we ran in our sample and make sure that everything performed and had good quality. Once we do that, we're then going to look at each of those DNA profiles, those peaks and heights or peaks and numbers that we just looked at, and start interpreting. And how we interpret it is we basically start describing that profile. So do we have a full, partial, or limited profile? Meaning, do we have data at all of those locations we made copies of, or are we missing data at some places? We also try and determine how many people are present in this sample. A number of evidentiary samples that we work with in forensics have more than one person in them, which is called a mixture. So we determine whether or not it's a single source profile or a mixture, and then how many people are present in there. And then finally, sometimes we can also determine a major and minor contributor. A major contributor is somebody who is showing up more strongly in that profile, and a minor contributor is the opposite, showing up much less in that profile.
Spencer, I'm going to hand you Exhibit 30, and you're talking about getting these profiles. Could you read some of the descriptions of the profiles and explain those to us based on what you just said?
Yeah, so an example, and we'll look at this in a little bit, an example of an interpretation would be the DNA profile is consistent with a mixture of at least 5 individuals, including at least 1 male. And then we have some that also say the major contributor matches a specific person, and then the minor contributor profile is inconclusive. So that's kind of the terminology that we're using in the reports once we've done this. And the way that we eventually get to is those standards that I just talked about. That is when we're going to be able to say that a match is present. We're going to take that standard of that individual and compare it to that profile that we've already made conclusions on from the item of evidence and see if that person is a contributor. And that's what we call the binary method, because basically we're saying, is this person in this profile or are they not?
And what is that? Does that complete the interpretation process?
Yes, other than documenting it in a report, which is exactly what TBI did.
Okay. And is that where you get to the review process, or?
Yes, sir. Yes. So once a scientist who has done that whole process, done their interpretations, put their conclusions in a report, they're then going to hand off this report, this draft report, to 2 other people. And this is the review process. We have a technical review and an administrative.
Y'all, can we pause while y'all get the likes up? It's well over, it was 200 people in here. I need the likes up, please. Thank you in advance.
Sound exactly like what they are. Technical, we're going to go through what did we follow our manual and our protocols that we have in the lab? Do I agree with your conclusions, the data that you produced? And then our administrative review is exactly what it sounds like. Did you spell everything correctly? Did you dot all your I's, cross all your T's? All of that good stuff.
So basically, did we ask you to review the review?
Yes, I kind of like to say that what I do is like a super technical review of the case. I go in and look at it again. I try and look at it how I would if I was a technical reviewer, but I'm usually also incorporating other information into it, and that's why I kind of call it a super technical review.
So are we ready now to go into your examination of the evidence you got from TBI?
Yes. So This is going to be pictures from TBI's analysis along with their results. And then, and we'll look at this as we go through. So the first exhibit we'll be looking at is exhibit 1A and 1B, and that's Mr. Martin's boots. You can see 1A is the left boot and 1B is right. So like we talked about before, the first thing TBI did was that serology process.
That's the
So they're
one
gonna
that
screen
has
it
already
and
pled
then
guilty.
try to identify any body fluids on these two boots. The body fluid they're focusing on in this case is blood. So how they did that is they used a presumptive test, which is on the slide is TMB&P, which is tetromethylbenzidine and phenolphthalein.
Let me ask you something. On the slide, it looks like the boots have been sectioned off. Is that something? Tell us, what is that?
Yes, so what the analyst did is she was testing these specific areas to try and narrow down where the blood was. So she's focusing on the same areas, and she focused on the same areas for all of the boots that she processed in this case. So you'll see similar areas circled on all of the boots we look at. So she circles these areas because not only did she do the serology, but she took those samples like we talked about, the trace samples, and they went on to DNA
Or
analysis
afternoon,
too.
depending on where you are.
So the entirety of the left boot there, 1A, was TMB&P negative, which means it's negative for the presence of blood. And then if we can go to the next slide, this is 1B, so the right boot. This area that you can see there that has that blue arrow, that was TMB&P positive. So again, that's a presumptive test for the presence of blood.
Just for the record, the boots we're talking about right now were Emmett Martin's boots, is that correct?
That is correct.
That's exhibit 1.
Yes, yep. So again, all three areas on each of these boots were swabbed for DNA analysis and taken into that process. Okay, so we'll have 3 samples per boot that we'll look at eventually with our DNA testing.
Next slide.
Yes, sir. So this next slide is basically the same of what we looked at for Mr. Martin's boots, except these are Mr. Haley's boots. So again, we have 2A is the left boot, 2B is the right boot. We have those areas denoted again that she focused her testing on. And again, we have 3 areas per boot. Again, the left boot tested negative for TMB&P, so it is negative for blood. And then the next slide. The right boot tested positive in that area, presumptively for the presence of blood on Mr. Haley's right boot.
So where'd you go from there?
So what TBI does next is they're going to move into the DNA process. So those samples that they took from those areas of swabbing with their Q-tip, they're going to take a cutting and then go in through our 4 steps that we talked about: extraction,
So in other
quantitation,
words,
amplification, and
instead of
separation.
his blood being on their hands, his blood is on their feet, their boots, their shoes.
Yes, sir. So after going through that process, we again are going to get those DNA profiles that I showed you of each of those samples that we talked about, those electropherograms that are just peaks and numbers. And these are the interpretations of TBI. So when they sat down and looked at these DNA profiles that they generated from those exhibits, those items and those samples, this is their interpretation.
What was that interpretation?
So for Mr. Martin's boots, again, looking at the left boot, which was negative for the presence of blood, that area 1 is a mixture of at least 5 individuals, including a male, and it was inconclusive. So typically when we're doing interpretation using that binary method that I talked about, whether or not somebody is included or not included, when you have a mixture of DNA that goes anywhere from 3 to 4 individuals, it becomes very difficult
To
for
narrow it
me
down.
as an analyst to try and do any interpretation of that, because it's what we call a nasty mixture.
For those of us with service animals, preparation is key. Ensure your buddy always has
Out and determine who is really present. So what happens with that is it becomes, we have at least 5 individuals. I know a male is there, but I can't do any more interpretation of it. So it's inconclusive.
In your experience, is it surprising to find a lot of different people's DNA on a boot?
So shoes in general usually produce mixture profiles. If you think about your shoes, you're walking around in your home, anywhere, you're collecting DNA from your family members on your feet, putting it in your shoes and on your shoes if they're sitting around the door. But we also have to take into consideration what these boots are worn. These are police officers' boots that they're wearing out to crime scenes, interactions with a number of individuals every night. So the idea that they have a lot of other people present on their boots is not really odd.
So that number is.
Yeah, they may have kicked somebody else in the
Yeah.
head.
Yes.
And go on with your conclusions on the Martin case.
Yes, so sample number 2 is a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and it again is inconclusive. And a sample can also be inconclusive, even though I said it's 3 to 4 people we're really looking at. We can't really start breaking down that mixture. Sometimes you just don't have a lot of DNA, so it's not a really good profile that you can be confident in to make good interpretations on. And then 3, we have a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and the major is consistent with
What you
Mr.
mean?
Martin,
No,
and the minor is
do it?
inconclusive. So that's
You
again,
think
like
so?
we
It's
talked
me?
about, we have
It's
that
just
major
me?
contributor that's showing up more strongly
I don't
than
quite
another
take it
individual
there
or
yet.
any other individuals present in it.
And
it's Mr.
knowing
Martin, which
Hageman,
we expect Mr. Martin to be on his own shoes.
And what about the left?
So the right boot,
we gonna see.
for sample 1, we have a mixture of at least 2 individuals, including a male. That's inconclusive. And then for 2 and 3, we have the same results. We have a mixture of at least 2 individuals, including a male,
Yeah,
and the
right.
major matches Mr. Tyre Nichols, and the minor is inconclusive. That's for sample 2 and 3. And if we remember back to our serology results, that 3rd sample on that boot tested presumptively positive for blood.
let's say it's not the boot. What about that baton, dude? It was
Correct, yes.
So let's go to Mr. Haley.
So again, it's gonna look
what that baton
almost the
come up
exact
with.
same. Left boot, we know is presumptively negative for the presence of blood. On sample 1, we have a mixture of at least 7 individuals, including a male. That is inconclusive. On 2, we have a mixture of at least 4 individuals, including a male. The major is consistent with Mr. Haley, which once again, it's his boots.
Oh,
Minor
wow.
is inconclusive. And
Haley
the 3rd
ass in
sample is a
trouble.
mixture
He
of at
should-
least
he
3
should take plea
individuals,
deal.
including a male, and that again is inconclusive.
So what did
She
you draw
said
from
mixture.
this analysis?
Yeah, because more than one person was kicking and
So at
stomping.
this point, we don't have a lot of information. We just know that Mr. Haley is present on his boots.
Yeah,
So
it was more
once
than
we
one
get to the
person
right
kicking
boot,
and stomping
though,
him, so it's a
the first
mixture.
sample is at least 6 individuals, including a male, and again is inconclusive. Sample 2, we have a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and then the major
Oh, okay.
matches
You
an
just
unknown
talking.
male.
Okay.
And what we mean by an unknown male is that all the standards that we used in the case that we compared the evidence to, that profile doesn't match anybody. So it's an unknown person that we don't know who it is, okay? And then the 3rd sample, which again, it tested presumptively positive for the presence of blood during our serology
Yeah, that
testing.
unknown,
It was a
probably that
mixture of at least
lieutenant.
4 individuals, including a male, and it was also inconclusive.
That retired.
So where do we go from there?
So based on these results and after I looked at them, I decided that we could possibly employ a relatively newer technique within the field of forensic biology, but not new in the world of science, and it's called probabilistic genotyping. And the main point of probabilistic genotyping is to help deconvolute or demix these nasty mixtures. So it's going to use science and a computer to do this instead of me as an analyst doing it.
Now, how common is the use of this probabilistic genotyping?
So it's becoming much more common in the last couple of years. There's really 2 companies out there that have probabilistic genotyping software. The one that we used is called Cybergenetics. The software itself is called TrueAllele, which you'll see in a minute. But what they have the software and they work the software.
So are those 2 companies like the Pepsi and Coke of this type of?
Yeah, so that would be the Pepsi. The Coke version would be what's called Star Mix, and you can actually purchase Star Mix and bring it into your lab and use it yourself. So more and more labs are starting to bring probabilistic genotyping online within their own labs.
Is that very expensive?
Yes, it is very expensive.
So which one did you use?
I use the TrueAllele from Cybergenetics.
And is this sort of a form of artificial intelligence?
No, it's using math for the most part. So what it's using from the TBI, I sent the data files that produce that DNA picture, that electropherogram. Those data files were sent to Cybergenetics. So they use all the data within those data files to do their interpretation. So their software uses statistics, biological modeling to use all of the data and to make more of an interpretation or to be able to better deconvolute and unmix those profiles.
Does the FBI use this type of
Yes.
software, I guess?
Yes. The FBI, I think, has brought on.
Hit the like button, please. Thanks in advance.
Star Mix, so the Coke version of this rather than the Pepsi. Again, that can be brought into your lab, but TrueAllele has been used in a number of states and a number of cases to give more information, including in the state of Tennessee.
And how many times did you use this in the past?
I believe this is my first time using it for a case. I have done training through them. And I've also done training through StarMix, so I'm very familiar with this type of procedure in this software.
And how did you decide to use it in this case?
So because we were focusing on Mr. Haley's boots, what we decided was that we were going to take the data produced by TBI from all 12 samples, right? 3 from each boot, and send that off to Cybergenetics or TrueAllele for them to use in their software.
And next slide.
Yes, sir. So what TrueAllele did was they did a preliminary screening test, and that's what these results show on this PowerPoint. So it's basically just a table up there, and if we just to explain the table a little bit, we have all of our item numbers. So we see we have 2A is our left boot, 2B is our right boot. We have 1, 2, 3 samples for each one. We then have the comparison to Mr. Haley's standard, and we have the comparison to Mr. Nichols' standard. And then they also, because we had that unknown male that was on the boot, that was also used as a standard in this case as well. Down at the bottom, we have a table that represents kind of what these numbers that you'll see in the table. So remember when we were talking about interpretation, we are either including someone or saying it's a match, or we're saying it's not a match and they could be excluded. So that's what these numbers are representing. These numbers are actually the number of zeros given within the probabilistic statistics that they produce. If the blank over on the right-hand side, as you can see, blank means no statistical support. So if we look at the comparison to Mr. Haley, we can see that in most areas we have strong support for him being present on his boot. Again, he should be present on his boot. That's not surprising, right? So next, the comparison is to Mr. Nichols. So we have on sample A2, we have a 1, which is inclusionary. On B2, we needed more testing. TrueLeal stated they needed more testing, so no determination was really put there. And then on B3, it was inclusionary and 9 zeros on there. So moving closer to that stronger support we have for that inclusion.
And so what does inclusionary mean?
So inclusion means that the software is telling us that that person's DNA is present in that mixture sample.
And this looks like some sort of probabilistic graph. What is this?
So this is what comes with the TrueLeal. It's basically, I made this into hopefully a more understandable, the line graph that was on the bottom there. That's all that is just that converted to the line graph that I put on there was hopefully a little bit more understandable.
So once you got that data, did you make another graph?
Yes, I did. So what I did is that we wanted to look at all of the results we have using TBI's serology results, their quantitation results, the DNA interpretation, and then incorporate that true allele results that we got from this. So we're going to compare Mr. Martin's right boot, we have 1B up there, to Mr. Haley's right boot. And again, if you remember, those samples are generally in the same area. And for both samples 3, they were positive, or presumptively positive for the presence of blood, okay? So that that third column there is our quantitation value. So that again is telling us how much DNA was present in that sample from that item of evidence. So the unit of measurement is not really important. It's nanograms, but not really something important. We can just look at the numbers here. So if we're looking at, we'll focus on the third sample of each boot. We have a total of 2.76266 nanograms of DNA that was taken from that item of evidence.
And that would have been Mr. Martin's boot?
Correct. Now, not only are we looking at this quantitation value, but we're looking at the DNA results. So the DNA results showed us that there was 2 people present in this sample. So because that's the total amount of DNA, we can kind of divide this quantitation value by our number of contributors. So we take that 2.76 and divide it by 2, and we have a general idea of how much DNA each person in this mixture is contributing, okay? So then we move down to Mr. Haley's sample 3 that again was presumptively positive for the presence of blood. We have a total amount of DNA that's 0.22681, and that amount of DNA is shared by 4 people. So we then have to take that value and divide it by 4. So we have much less DNA in general, but we also, because we have more people involved, each person is giving less DNA.
So with Martin's on this, you would take that 2.76 and cut it in half for Martin's value.
Yes, generally, yes.
And then on Haley's value in the yellow, you would take that number, 0.22681, and divide it by 4.
That is correct, yes. To get a general idea of how much DNA each individual in the mixture is giving to that sample.
And were you able to reach any conclusions based upon this graph?
So again, taking into the totality of the results that we're looking at, serology results, quantitation results, interpretation results, and true allele results. We have a limited amount of blood on really both samples, but once we start looking at the quantitation results, we see that that 2.76 is looking to be more consistent with a sample that is blood. And that's based on my time working cases, looking at DNA samples from what I know is blood. And then we also, again, incorporate those DNA results looking at the number of contributors, okay? We also see, we have to start also incorporating, the other information I was given. So the videos I was provided was both the body-worn camera footage of officers and the Sky Cop video footage. And then also looking at the medical examiner's documentation saying that there was blunt force trauma to the torso as well as the head.
So did these findings correlate, in your opinion, with the what you saw in the video?
Yes, they did.
How so?
So for the most part, what I was looking at is potentially where could Mr. Haley have struck Mr. Nichols? And looking at the DNA results, we see mostly with that quantitation result, because it's such a smaller amount, 12 times smaller than what we have from Mr. Martin, that is not necessarily consistent with what I would expect a blood sample to provide, okay? So again, we're only looking at a presumptively positive blood test. There are other body fluids that can contain blood, such as saliva, sweat, especially depending on what activities you have been involved in. So looking at those results, it's not clear that it is definitely blood from that sample. It could also be transfer from, say, epithelial cells or your skin cells.
Epithelial, that's skin cells?
Yes, that's skin cells, and you have epithelial cells all over your body, and you would expect them to be, even on your clothing, of course, on your skin as well.
And the vast, the 12 times more DNA present on the Martin boot, what do you make of that?
So again, because of that amount of DNA that we have, it is more consistent with being blood. Again, we do have that presumptive test. We don't have any confirmatory tests, but again, the main point of doing serology is to try and identify that body fluid because we know those body fluids have a good amount of DNA. 2.76 is a good amount of DNA that I would be confident I'm going to get a good informative profile as I was going through my process.
So as between these two contributors, Mr. Haley and Mr. Martin, what is more likely to have occurred on the scene based upon your DNA analysis?
So I think that based on DNA analysis, it provides information on the strike that Mr. Haley made was not necessarily to an area that had blood on it. So this could have been his torso, it could have been his clothing, it could have been something of that area.
Mr. Martin?
That, again, because it being that high amount of DNA, it is a major contributor of Mr. Nichols that is more consistent with blood. So it would be in an area where blood was present, such as his face.
Hold on. Oh, Lord. Hold on. Let me go back a little.
What I was looking at
I'm
is
sorry.
potentially where could Mr. Haley have struck Mr. Nichols? And looking at the DNA results, we see mostly with that quantitation result, because it's such a smaller amount, 12 times smaller than what we have from Mr. Martin, that is not necessarily consistent with what I would expect a blood sample to provide. Okay, so again, we're only looking at a presumptively positive blood test. There are other body fluids that can contain blood, such as saliva, sweat, especially depending on what activities you have been involved in. So looking at those results, it's not clear that it is definitely blood from that sample. It could also be transfer from, say, epithelial cells or your skin
What
cells.
is, epithelial, that's skin cells?
Yes, that's skin cells, and you have epithelial cells all over your body, and you would expect them to be, you know, even on your clothing, of course, on your skin as well.
And the vast, the 12 times more DNA present on the Martin boot, what do you make of that?
So again, because of that amount of DNA that we have, it is more consistent with being blood. Again, we do have that presumptive test. We don't have any confirmatory tests. But again, the main point of doing serology is to try and identify that body fluid, because we know those body fluids have a good amount of DNA. 2.76 is a good amount of DNA that I would be confident I'm going to get a good informative profile as I was going through my process.
So as between these two contributors, Mr. Haley and Mr. Martin, what is more likely to have occurred on the scene based upon your DNA analysis?
So I think that based on DNA analysis, it provides information on the strike that Mr. Haley made was not necessarily to an area that had blood on it. So this could have been his torso, it could have been his clothing, it could have been something of that area.
Mr. Martin?
That, again, because it being that high amount of DNA, it is a major contributor of Mr. Nichols that is more consistent with blood. So it would be in an area where blood was present, such as his face.
Have your opinions today been within a reasonable degree of certainty within your field?
It's based on my expert experience and opinion, yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I would like to mark as an exhibit the graph that Ms. Spencer shared with us that was previously on the screen.
Any objection? We'll go ahead and put the DNA graph as exhibit 35.
Your Honor, I believe that's all the questions I have.
Right. Next in line would be Mr. Zimmerman. I have no questions, Your Honor. All right, Mr. Barry? No, Your Honor. State.
Dang, what did she say about Haley? I missed it again. What did she say about him? That's Haley. What did she say? He kicked him in his face, and where else?
I am not a doctor. It's okay. Yes, good morning.
Good morning. I'm actually an expert in probabilistic genotypes.
Awesome.
No, I'm just
I was going to say, that's very exciting.
Starting it sounded delicious.
Doesn't it? It sounds like a cereal, I think.
Dang it, I missed it again. Can somebody comment what she said about Haley?
A broad perspective here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
A good amount of DNA, which is probably blood of Tyre Nichols, found on Emmett Martin's right boot.
That is correct.
And before, I think I know the answer to this. On your presentation, you had like a blue arrow that pointed to a section of a boot,
Correct.
and that's not pointing to a particular spot. That's picture a section, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. So the TBI analyst wasn't able to really narrow down a specific stain on it. You have to think about it's a black boot that's really hard to find blood on. Blood we like to describe as a reddish brown stain, and that's just difficult to see on black material. So she sampled that area, and that was the general area, and she would have sampled that whole area for processing. Yes.
So the blue spot doesn't mean that's a blue spot.
No, sir, no, yes, yes.
Gotcha. So a good amount of Tyre Nichols blood on Emmett Martin's right foot.
Yes,
Right boot.
right boot, yes, based on the quantitation results, yes, sir.
And then we looked at Officer Haley, Defendant Haley's boots.
Yes, sir.
And we have found an amount of Tyre Nichols DNA, to a probabilities
Yes,
on Defendant Haley's right boot.
that is correct, yes.
And so we have Tyre Nichols' DNA on both Martin's right boot and on Haley's right boot,
That is correct, yes.
which is consistent with Martin boot having kicked Mr. Nichols.
Yes, it could be. That could have been the reason why blood was on it, yes.
And is consistent with Haley's boot making contact with Mr. Nichols.
That is correct, yes.
But we found more DNA on Martin's boot than we did Haley's boot,
That is correct, yes.
which means probably we've got more of Tyre's blood on Martin's boot than we do on Haley's boot.
Yes, that is also possible, yes.
And we've talked about Mr. Haley's kick to Mr. Nichols, correct?
Somewhat, yes, yeah,
Okay, well,
yeah. I'm sure you guys have, yes.
Okay, we
Yes.
talked a little bit.
Yes.
Here, you reviewed the Skycop footage,
Yes, I did.
and you reviewed some body worn camera footage.
Yes, I did.
I just want to make sure that if we can play the whole camera footage of Mr. Haley. We can play some old things as well. It's just so we see the kick again that we're talking about.
Yes, sir, yeah,
I know that you weren't there, and I'm not going to ask.
yes.
And while they're queuing that up, in fact, you've worked at TVL previously,
Yes,
but it was before this case.
yes, before this case, yes.
We can just start here, if you can just fast forward to where the camera switches over.
I'll call your attention to just a couple spots in the video, okay?
Yes, sir.
This is the Castlegate video. Just go, if we can just play from the start, let's play from the start, it's the easiest thing. There may be 30 seconds while we're waiting. Here we go. We're starting the video at 20:32.
Yes, sir, yes, thank you.
Stop it there. I'll tell you, that's Officer Martin that just kicked Mr. Nichols in the head. Is that consistent with your knowledge of the video?
Yes, it is, yes.
And is that type of strike that may result in a transfer of DNA from Mr. Nichols' head to Mr. Martin's boot?
Yes,
You can't specify which, but is that type of contact that could result in that?
yes.
Stop it there. You saw Mr. Martin kick him again in the head, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And is that again the sort of thing that could transfer Mr. Nichols' DNA to Mr. Martin's boot?
That is correct.
Ross and Castleton. We are east of the intersection.
See that right there, just stop it, see right there.
Yes, sir.
And would that been identified you as Officer Haley there that comes in?
Yes,
And is it that kind of impact, did you see a kick?
yes,
Is it that sort of kick that could result to the transfer of Tyre Nichols' DNA to Mr. Haley's boot?
yes,
Stop it. Did you just see that?
yes.
And was that Mr. Martin again?
If you tell me it's Mr. Martin, yes, it is, yes.
It is Mr.
Okay.
Martin.
Yes, sir.
Is that the sort of kick that again could result in the transfer of Mr. Nichols' DNA to Mr. Martin's boot?
Yes.
And I think I understand your testimony to be that from this, perhaps we can conclude that since Mr. Martin's right boot has more DNA of Mr. Nichols on it,
Correct.
that it's more likely that his boot contacted an area of Mr. Nichols that had blood.
Yes,
And we see it for himself, he kicks him in the head.
yes,
But from looking at Mr. Haley's boot, since it has less of Tyre Nichols' DNA, it's harder to ascertain the area in which Mr. Haley actually kicked Mr. Nichols.
yes, that is true.
Could be I would assume kicking somebody, tell me if I'm right or wrong, I mean, kicking somebody through your foot could result in transfer of DNA no matter where you kick that person.
Yes, that's true, because again, as we talked about, your DNA is all over your body and on your clothes. So especially if you're kicking exposed skin or even clothing, it's probably going to transfer those cells are going to transfer to that shoe.
And so all we can really talk about is probably or probabilities or what.
Can you get the lights up, please?
Oh, no, like, I was saying, alligator. 2937.
Stop it there for a quick. That's Officer Haley's case.
Okay,
Again, it's unclear from that if he kicked him in the side, the shoulder, in the head, neck, whatever.
correct.
Might as well play Officer Marks did. About the same way Officer Marks did.
Yeah, in that video. I have not reviewed that video before, but yeah, you can't tell from that video, but yes.
But what we can tell from the DNA and from the videos are that Officer Martin kicked Mr. Nichols at least 3 times.
Correct.
And Defendant Haley kicked Mr. Nichols while he was on the ground at least 1 time.
That is correct.
No further questions.
Anything else from the defense?
Ms. Spencer, as a DNA analyst, do you have anything that you can opine on other than probability?
No. Again, my job is to look at the DNA results and provide information to attorneys and juries. And that's, I use probabilistics within that, or statistics, I'm sorry, within that.
And would you categorize the items that you use to come to your conclusion as objective evidence,
Yes, I would say yes.
as opposed to subject, correct?
Correct, yes.
I believe that's all I have.
Anything else on this witness? All right, those are all the questions I have for you.
Thank you, sir.
Ooh, I know they, ooh.
Thank you, ready with your next witness?
I believe we're going to take a witness out of order. Justin Smith's going to provide a witness.
Are we?
And may I have a moment so that we avoid technological problems like this?
All right.
I would hate to be them. Ooh, I would hate to be them. Can y'all please hit the like button? Yeah, I need for y'all to hit the like button. Please, respectfully.
Before you start your questions, can I have the attorney?
would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, it's Jared Zwicky. It's Jared. Last name is Zwickey.
Your Honor, may the deputy pass the witness a document that has been shown to the district attorney. Sir, is that a copy of your professional resume?
Yes, sir, it is.
I'd like that marked the next, Your Honor, with your permission, the next sequentially marked exhibit.
So the two-page resume of the wiki has exhibit 36.
Sir, we're going to briefly go over your experience, training, and education. We are going to give, not that it's not important, but we are going to give, for lack of a better word, the Cliff Note version, all right?
Yes, sir.
Since you're not shy about these things, how old are you?
I'll be 81 this year.
I say that only because I hope for myself. How long have you been in law enforcement?
I served 38 years in law enforcement.
And have you been a chief of police before?
Yes, I have in 2 organizations.
All right. Have you attended college training put on by different law enforcement organizations in order to become proficient in your chosen field of expertise?
Yes, I have.
Have you also provided training to different law enforcement organizations, again, in those same fields of your expertise that we'll be talking about more of?
I have, yes.
Have you trained, for example, the FBI?
I have.
Have you trained the Secret Service?
I have.
Have you trained the Los Angeles Police Department?
Some members of the Los Angeles Police Department, yes.
And having gotten to know you for a number of years, you've trained officers and police departments across the country, from the Northeast all the way down to Texas to California, in areas of deadly force. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Defensive tactics.
Yes.
By the way, give us a thumbnail version of what is defensive tactics.
Well, defensive tactics, actually, it's a misnomer. It's defensive tactics plus arrest control techniques. It's
Hey,
the
Big Money.
ability to teach people how to arrest somebody and get them under control.
Thank you.
And the other part of that, the defense, is defense of yourself and others with either weapons or with your hands.
And do you carry a number of, I'm going to call them certifications, do you carry a number of skill sets as it relates to martial arts and fighting skills?
I do. I have been fortunate enough to acquire 3 black belts in 3 different systems. One would be a Chinese system. The second one would be modern arnis, which came from the Philippines, which is double stick fighting, or with sticks or with machetes. And with Bajak, karate came out of the South Koreans, is a dagger set teaching a defense with 2 daggers. They all pretty much intertwine. And then along with some Aikido training that I first studied back in 1964, 1965 with Los Angeles police instructor who was an Aikido expert as well.
Only because I'm short and fat. Does that explain why you were in such good shape?
Yes, sir, I practice every day.
Every morning, I have to wait till you're done before I call you. Is that right?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. Now, you, not only have you been a police chief, but have you also been a SWAT team member?
Yes, I have. Actually, I worked on the SWAT team for over 20 years.
And have you been a SWAT team commander?
I have been, yes.
Did you well, let me back up one bit. Have you been qualified as an expert in the field of defensive tactics, human factors, arrest techniques in state courts across the country?
I have, yes.
Have you been qualified as an expert to testify, give opinions in the areas of body cam and pole cam videos in order to render opinions regarding the appropriate level of force that a respective officer or officers have administered?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate of how many times you've been qualified and testified in live court as an expert in those areas?
Boy, that's pretty hard to give you an exact figure.
That's testimony.
I'm just going to estimate probably over 90 times during my entire career.
How many federal courts have you been so qualified to testify as an expert?
Once again, I think that's a little hard to go back over 50 years, but I would say probably at least a quarter or more of those cases that I testified in over the years.
And have you been qualified in the Sixth Circuit, which includes Tennessee, in the U.S. federal court, as an expert in those areas?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And briefly, tell us what is known in the area of court testimony, court expert testimony, as a friend of the court. What is a friend of the court?
Well, my understanding of friend of the court was, or is, when an individual has a certain expertise, is asked by the court to offer the court an opinion. Basically, like my field would have been use of force.
Have you been asked to serve as a friend of the court, by the courts, to serve as a friend of the court, to actually provide them expert opinions in federal court?
I have, and I believe it was 1987 in the San Francisco Federal Court regarding major issues that we were having with the war protesters at the Concord Naval Weapons Station.
And that had to do, if I remember correctly, I don't mean to lead you, but having examined you before, that had to do with active resistance and passive resistance. Is that right?
Yes, that was helping the court to understand what the ground rules were going to be for what is a passive, what is an active resistant, and what level of force any of us in the law enforcement community could use when we were making arrests.
All right. Now, being a police chief and all those other things, have you also served on what is called the Post Commission?
Yes, I have.
And the Post Commission, give a layman's definition of what the Post Commission is for the jury.
Well, Post
Coming
Commission
up in
basically
here.
sets the standards for training. For
They
law
scared of the
enforcement
light
officers throughout the
buttons.
state of
They
California.
scared to support.
About 40, I think.
I'm
At
good.
the time, 43 different academies.
How are you
throughout the
doing?
state. Some at universities, some at law enforcement agencies. And there are
I
about
can't.
43 different categories of instruction. And the state of California through Post then makes sure that every one of those categories of instruction are certified, and that people who are teaching those domains, learning domains, are qualified to teach it.
And you served in that capacity for how long?
Well, let's see, from 1997 to about 2011, I was the academy director at one of the university or a junior college. And we had the post
Hey,
committee, so I had to
exclusive.
serve during that time.
They need to be
As a subject matter expert for
under
use
the
of
jail.
force,
I agree.
firearms. And then we also participated
There
in
is
developing
no
not only the
explanation,
curriculum
no.
for those, but
But
also
again,
for
I'ma still say,
role-playing
Haley,
exercises
Haley,
and computer training for the academy students as well.
Haley,
And-
I'ma still think he the one of
Have
them.
you, number one, testified
I'ma leave
as
that
an
alone
expert
for now.
in the area of what is referred
If y'all
to
know how I
in your
feel about the
industry
Scorpion
as
Unit,
human factors.
who I think,
Yeah.
What is a layman's definition
Tyre
of
Nichols look
the
like?
analysis of human factors?
and now we know for
Well, basically,
sure
What?
who passed those pictures
There are
around.
some real basic
Like there was a bounty on
factors such
somebody's
as,
head.
what
I
we
still
refer
think
to
it's
as
Haley.
tunnel vision. The second thing is auditory exclusion, what you hear, and what you feel, and then there are environmental factors. And every one of those factors are looked at in all aspects of law enforcement investigations, whether it be traffic accidents, whether it be plane crashes, whether it be fatal accidents, where we have to reconstruct maybe what the driver saw or how the driver acted, were they under the influence, to basic mechanical defects of a vehicle. So we're looking at all those factors plus environmental, what will the lighting
You know what the best part about using the Stopwatch Pro is that it's so easy to get into. You don't have to worry about any batteries.
was it? Because that type of an incident really dictates what kind of an emotional response that the individual officer, a suspect, and witnesses will go through when they're involved in those kind of encounters.
Have you performed and exercised that expertise at first level, or
Excuse me, hold on.
as an investigator of an
That's because y'all wasn't hitting the like button. And heck, it's my lunchtime. I can't even put a face on. Hold on. Y'all hit the like button. And let me fix this, please. It's, oh, Lord. Hey, Keith. Get the lights up, please. Oh, my goodness. Oh. I think it's so disrespectful that I have to keep asking y'all to hit the like button. It makes no sense. And I'm going to stop allowing y'all to feel entitled to take advantage. Y'all going to catch me on a bad day. And baby, it's going to be all she wrote. I mean that.
In other words, where you come on to investigate.
Yeah, please go
What
ahead and
happened.
just leave
And
if you
it's-
can't hit the like button.
Yes, you have to.
Respectfully.
And have you also used that training, skill, experience, and education in giving expert opinions to law enforcement agencies or the courts in areas of human factors?
I have, as well as individual officers to, not only experienced officers, but new officers coming into the business, to let them know basically that an arrest situation is not only a physical one, but it's a mental one as well. And they have to go through the steps of things like anger. How do you control anger? And how do you control excitement? If you're involved in a possible shooting situation, how are you going to stop that rapid breathing? So we try to not really inoculate an officer to those things, but to just make them aware and try to give them some techniques how to reduce that level of stress that they're going to be going through.
And have you been asked by the FBI to give this type of training or inoculation, as you call it, have you been asked by the FBI to provide that type of human factors training and advice to their own FBI agents?
Yeah, not directly. I didn't have to go to the academy to do that, but through our training. Every training that I give, whether it be hands-on training with a defensive technique, how to defend yourself, whether it's a baton, which is the training I gave to the HRT, which is a hostage rescue team out of San Francisco. They're training with a baton because nobody had taught them
So
that.
the record is clear, the hostage rescue team out of San Francisco for what agency?
For the FBI.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Things that they have to be careful of as well, and part of that is the emotional control of your anger when you're striking
Emotional
someone.
control
You have to
of your
keep things
anger.
in reference.
Were you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, it seems like you have a lot of irons in the fire, and here you are testifying on behalf of Justin Smith.
Justin, okay.
Are you paid for your time to provide expert consultation and advice and testimony?
I am just like every other expert, and the attorneys that are here today, yes, I do get paid for my services.
Okay? Of all the courts that we've talked about, of all the agencies we've talked about or you've talked about, have you ever been declined or denied or refused by any court in this country, federal or state, to testify as an expert in the areas you've listed?
No, sir, I've not.
Tell them, I'm going to tender this witness as an expert on behalf of Justin Smith in the areas listed thus far in the record, Your Honor.
Can you list them up?
I knew you would do something.
We talked about a whole bunch of expertise.
Yeah, that's just duly short. Defense tactics, human factors, deadly force, police training, police officer training, investigations of critical incidents. And if I left one out, Your Honor, I might have to come back and get a mulligan. All right.
Any objection to those classifications?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll so show these tendered.
Now, by the way, did I list the appropriate areas for this case that you're here testifying for?
I think so, with maybe one exception is all of the digital analysis.
See? Tell us what background you have as it relates to digital and video analysis and when you've used it, sir.
Thank you. Actually, when I first started in 1974 with training and for investigations of critical incidents. The only readily available digital type of information was surveillance cameras. And it wasn't until 2012, actually, when the body camera was first introduced in California and was starting to be used by law enforcement. So that was my first encounters. It started out with some civilian use of surveillance cameras. And it involved, if I might just explain briefly, a shooting incident by a Anchorage police officer who was parked in a parking lot, happened to see a gentleman come out with a rifle, and he was pointing it at several individuals nearby, and he feared for their life and took a shot at the individual, missed him, and the whole controversy was, why did the officer act so recklessly? And when I looked at the surveillance camera, I found that it didn't show anything of these people off to the right-hand side of where the officer was. But then I later learned that it was only one frame every second. And if that filming rate was 1 frame per second, there was all those other frames missing. And I had to call in an expert from the company to clarify that.
Let me, thank you. You know, when we were kids and we take the edge of a book and we draw a picture of a guy about to jump his bicycle over a ramp, and then on the next page we move that bicycle up a little bit more, and then the next page you do a little bit more. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody over the age of 60 probably knows what I'm talking about. And then you flip the pages, and it makes like a little old Disney stick cartoon, doesn't it?
That's correct.
In between each one of those pages is what you're talking about, the frame rate. Is that right?
That's right, referred to as frame rate.
Okay. So what are the drawbacks, for lack of a better word, deficiencies in today's modern poll cams like we have in this case?
Right. Well, I think I basically answered that question one way is because in that earlier shooting, there was only 1 frame per second, so other things were missed.
Are you familiar with the frames per second rate of the Tennessee, Memphis Police Department poll cams in operation?
I am. I'm not sure exactly what the initial frame rate was when it was filmed, but when it eventually goes to a central receiving and is processed and digitized, because it's sending over by radio frequency. It's not like a camera that immediately is recorded here. It has to be transmitted over a long distance. That frame rate may have been 16 frames per second, but by the time it's produced, it's 8 frames per second, which was what the SkyCap camera was at the time of this incident.
Good. Now, because it may have started out or had the capabilities of 16 frames per second, but because it's transmitting that images over radio frequency back to headquarters, your research discovered that it was being dropped to about 8 frames per second.
That's correct.
And then body-worn cameras, Axon body-worn cameras issued to MPD police officers. What frame rate are they?
They're 30 frames per second.
That's 30 frames per second, right?
That's correct.
Now, even I can figure out that is a clearer or more precise measurements, is that right? Or film taking?
Well, it's even above what they call the national standard. National standard is 24. This camera will run anywhere from 24 to 30, can be reduced. But 24 is the standard. 30 makes it really smooth and clear and easy for everybody to see.
Now, you told us what the drawback is of poll cams, and that is clarity. By the way, is focus also a problem with poll cams?
Focus, and the other fact is it's so far away. If you've got like in the poll cam, it is what they call a PT. It's a pan and tilt. It only has so much focus that you can make, and then the quality of it at that distance diminishes. And even with a light sensor in the camera, you get more of a darker, grainy type of a picture that you're looking at. is what we've been looking at here.
But it's the best we got in this case, but I was asking.
Diamond
the
frosted
body
flakes.
camera
That's
is
cute.
much better, is that right?
It is much better, yes.
But there are drawbacks to the use of body-worn cameras, aren't there?
There is, not only body-worn cameras, but as well as the surveillance.
Yeah, we've already talked about surveillance.
Yes.
I'm moving on to body-worn cameras. Body-worn camera, just give me the 6 or 7 highest deficiencies of the body-worn cameras that's utilized by the Memphis Police Department.
Best way I can describe it is the fact that the body camera is normally kept here on the chest. And whenever we look at whatever the image is being projected, we make an assumption, sometimes falsely, that the officer is looking exactly where this is. Anywhere where I turn, that camera will be looking at you, but I may be looking over here at the council. Okay? It doesn't help the officer feel a suspect's hand. You won't see if there's any tension that the officer feels when he grabs the suspect's hand. That's not recorded on here. You'll see the hand, and you'll see the officer holding that hand, but you'll never feel the resistance through a camera. Those are some real basic
Oh, I'm
things.
sorry. How did that
And
happen?
lastly, if I may,
Oh, I'm sorry.
is because the body camera is attached to the officer, whenever there is a disturbance fight and I'm trying to turn and grab a suspect, what you get is a blurred image. And then you're really not going to see what happened. And the last thing is, if the movement of this camera or an individual that somebody is dealing with is faster than 1/3 of a second, again, 1/3 of a second, that may be like 10 frames of what this is recording, you'll never see it. And there's only one way to see it. You have to slow it down to a 1 frame per second interval in order for us to see what that image was.
And you've been here all week listening to the testimony, have you not?
I have, yes.
And Officer Mills was called to the stand, and based upon his testimony, initially saying that when he came up on Bean and Smith, those two fellows, it looked like they were throwing punches or whatever. And then Mr. Perry cross-examined him and slowed up on the TV screen it down to just half speed. And then Mr. Mills testified, you were here, that they did not hit him in the face or the head. They were hitting his wrist and hands. Were you there for that?
I was, yes.
But your computer program, or what I call a computer program, your player program actually breaks each frame down into 1/60th. Is that correct?
Partially. It's actually, I do have a software that allows me to take a recording like that image and slow it down to 1/30th of a second. If my camera is at 1/30th, I can slow it down to 1/30th.
Listen,
If the camera is
criminals,
at
y'all better
24
stop.
frames, it will slow it down to 20.
These big numbers, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Even
At
using
this
Mr.
rate, y'all
Perry's,
better stop.
Flintstone version of just slowing it down to half, you saw what we saw, is that right? They
What'd he
never
say?
made contact
What did
with
KEYGLOCK
us.
say?
Clearly, yes.
Y'all better stop, baby.
At the hand, slapping at the hand, as you saw in that video, is that a defensive tactic?
Oh, well, it is if I'm trying to reach somebody's hands to get them out of the way so I can grab them, yeah.
What is a distraction slap?
It could be a variety of things. It could be to any part of the body, could be close to the face. I may not ever have to touch your face, it's just flip up towards your eyes and it can distract you for a moment. That's a
suspect.
distraction, a suspect, right.
And does it not also trigger the reaction of the suspect? If their hands are down here and you do a distraction slap, does it sometimes bring their hands up to guard their face?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that what you saw in the video with Tyre Nichols?
Yes, it was.
Is that what your conclusion is as an expert as it relates to what Bean and Smith were doing over Nichols trying to get his hands?
Based on my experience and training, absolutely.
All right, now, more administrative, I call it administrative. As part of your working for Mr. Smith, have you reviewed all of the the Memphis Police Department training that Mr. Smith received at the Memphis Police Department Academy?
I have, yes.
And gender, unless you have an objection to it, or unless you have a problem with it, was the training that Justin Smith received, did it meet the standards nationally of law enforcement training?
That's a difficult question because on paper it does look like the standards of post within the state of Tennessee were met. But whether or not they actually performed all those, I wasn't present during all of those training sessions. I couldn't give you that kind of an answer.
All right. Bear with me. Mr. Attorney, what I'm doing. Judge, I just want to make sure that I get only that, and so again, if everyone can be patient with me for a moment. Right now, I'm muted, I'm not projecting it, I'm just getting it to the right spot. Judge, I am paused where I need to be, and it's unmuted at 100%. So I'm going to do what I've been told by Miss Rebecca to project it. May I proceed, Judge?
This is you all already see receipts. They're just timestamp on it.
I'm gonna get it when it gets to Mr. Justin Smith. All right, before I hit play, you reviewed what is commonly referred to at the Memphis Police Department Training Academy as the Bad Bob video. Is that right?
I did, yes.
What is that?
And in order to set some groundwork, the officers are sprayed with one shot of OC spray in one eye, which the eyelid is closed when they're shot with the shot. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the other eye is covered, they call it a tactical L, that keeps it even off the eyelid. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you recognize the person that's in that video that I'm about to play?
Yes, I do.
Who is it?
Justin Smith.
All right, I'm going to hit play and let it proceed through, okay? It's only, what did I say, it was 2 minutes, Your Honor?
This is starting at, for the record, it's starting at 25 seconds, sorry, excuse me, 25, 20.
Yes, 25, 24, and we were going to go through 2806.
Yeah, you good? Good? Sir. All right, do you take well? Sir. Do you take well? Stretch your eye, hold your breath. Hold it. Control yourself, take a breath, open your eye. Don't fight, shit!
Maintain your composure, recruit. Maintain your composure.
You gotta control yourself. What is your name?
Justin Smith, sir.
What's your IBM?
13999.
Where are you from?
Arkansas, what's that, Arkansas?
Who's the commander of
many fingers holding up?
Hey, see, sir.
Open your eyes, you gotta look. Don't look, I'm gonna spray you in the face.
Hello, sir.
Smith, get it together. Control yourself. It burns, that's it. Breathe. Open your eyes. How many fingers am I holding up? Don't blank.
Look, I 6.
That's it. Look.
Fuck.
Long as you stay there, long as it burns. Compose yourself.
Tommy.
3.
Yes, sir.
You see that bomb?
Yes, sir.
Look at it. Don't fight it. Don't fight that bomb. Open your eyes so you can see. Don't walk like a blind man.
Grab the hand of neck. Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop fighting!
Smack him. With your elbow. With your elbow.
Stop
Go ahead and
fighting!
get him with your other elbow.
Stop fighting!
Give him some kneecap.
Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Stop
There
fighting!
you go. Shit. Give him the other knee. Give him that other knee. There you go. There you go. Give him some more elbow.
Stop fighting! Stop fighting!
Okay, handcuff. Handcuff. Don't get Bob on the ground. Open your eyes so you can see where he's going.
Put the hand on his neck, sir! Put the hand on, get me out of the hand, sir!
Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to minimize this. All right. Minimize it again somehow. All right. You watched that training?
I did.
You've watched that training before?
I have.
You've gotten to know Justin Smith as part of me, for lack of a better word, hiring you. Is that right?
I'm sorry, get your last part?
You got to know Justin Smith, have you not?
Yes, sir, I have.
Was he out of control there with one shot of OC in his face?
Oh, absolutely.
It was amongst friendly people, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
That experience with OC spray, is that similar to what Justin Smith experienced at Bear Creek and Castlegate?
No.
I know, but
Yeah,
was, let's do it another way.
yes.
The effects, the physiological effects of only one shot of OC spray in one eye, was that a much less troublesome or harmful series of events?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had at least 3 exposures to the face
When?
during the struggle with
Mr. Nichols.
Mr. Nichols. That's correct.
So he had 3 experiences of OC spray there at Bear Creek and Castlegate
That's correct.
with a subject who had or had not been searched for weapons.
Your Honor, basis of knowledge.
You can just lay the foundation as far as what you would know from the videos.
I'm not going to be limited to the video. Have you reviewed the investigation of the Memphis Police Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, as well as the FBI and the Department of Justice that relates to each and every act of Justin Smith and Tyre Nichols on January 7th?
Yes, I am.
So are you familiar with those facts?
Yes, I am.
So how many times did Justin Smith get shot in the eye with pepper spray?
At least 3 times on the scene.
And was Tyre Nichols ever searched during the entire process?
No, he was not. That I could see. Or know of.
Did you see any documentation that he'd been searched?
Absolutely none.
And you've heard sworn testimony that he was never searched, right?
Yeah, I have, yes.
So do you have any reason to believe that Tyre Nichols was searched?
Not at all.
Until a suspect is in handcuffs and searched for weapons, is the scene secure?
No, it's not.
What Justin Smith dealt with at Bear Creek and Castlegate, was that an unsecure, dangerous scene?
Yeah, absolutely it was.
Does Justin Smith wear glasses to your knowledge?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the you review the Memphis Police Department use of force policy as well as the force continuum?
I have, yes.
Now, I'm going to show you just the cover page of it.
Okay.
I'm an officer of the court sworn to not mislead the court. You've reviewed the Memphis Police Department use of force policy, is that right?
I have many times.
It's been provided to us in discovery.
Yes.
I would ask that that be the next sequentially numbered exhibit. It's about that thick, Your Honor. We'll take care of it. We do not. What?
I thought we had some policy.
I was told earlier it had not been admitted yet, so maybe I misheard. I'm sorry.
I have the policy and procedures.
Check exhibit
Okay.
15.
Let's move on. It sounds like it's already in evidence. The jury will later be able to see it. Back to what I was saying then. I would like the Memphis Police Department use of force policy as well as the force continuum is moved into evidence as an exhibit, and it's going to have to be late filed so that we can print it off on 8.5 file open paper.
Renee Parker.
Yes, sir.
Has exhibit 37. The MPD policies.
Yes. It appears to be 13 pages, Your Honor.
For the 29 people that just came in, can y'all hit the like button, please?
I'm going to go now to a video, and I'm going to hit pause so that we don't accidentally do anything, okay? Have you watched all of the body-worn camera and all of the poll cam videos provided by the state of Tennessee, the Department of Justice, to us in discovery?
I have, yes.
And one of those includes the Chris Wilson body-worn camera. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yes.
All right. All right. This is one of the videos that we just put in. But, may I proceed? This video I have marked here is 8 minutes, 51 seconds. Sir, at times I will stop during this video to ask you a question, okay?
Yes.
You want to do the lights, Judge? Can you see from where you are, Mr. Zwicky?
I can.
Oh,
Do you see Justin Smith in that video?
I do on the far right-hand side.
And Justin Smith, for his tactical bulletproof vest, has 2 reflective strips on his ribcage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Justin Smith also had white bottom tennis shoes on. Is that right?
That's correct.
And before this scene depicted, what did Justin Smith have on his head?
He had a ball cap on.
Like a baseball hat?
That's correct.
Did he have glasses on before this?
He had glasses as well, yes.
All right, I'm gonna hit play. You're familiar with Justin Smith's voice, aren't you?
I am.
Is that Justin Smith we hear yelling out?
It was.
with the palm running down from the wall. So bad. You don't need a mark, you need one stop. Stop. I'm talking about take folks out. I don't get oncoming traffic and everything. When I said again, does the pump need to cut down to you, or are you bringing it back down here? Bring it down here, bring it down here. Walk.
Are you familiar with Justice Smith's voice?
Yes.
Who was that telling Hemphill or 2938 to bring paramedics down?
To bring down for Mr.
Who
Nichols.
was it?
It was Smith,
Justin.
Justin Smith.
I see him. When you turn around, if you Come on, cut this shit out. I got sprayed too. Oh, what's up, man? Yeah, Why did my cigar running down the fucking street, man? Hold on, what y'all feel? Right here. I said, see no more. Well, you said that. We went.
By the way, just for clarity's sake, I stopped at 20, 40, 39. The person on my right-hand side of the screen, you recognize as who?
I think it's Officer Martin.
The one on the right side.
Yes?
Mr. Haley,
All right.
could you stand up?
Oh, that's Haley. Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. And then the bald-headed fella, stocky fella on the left side of the frame, who is that?
It looks like Officer Mills.
All right. And I'll try not to hit pause again, but in your review of this, you got to learn what Lieutenant Dwayne Smith looked like too, right?
I think I know what he looks like. Yes.
Can y'all still hear?
Starting again.
He went to space. He went to space.
Are y'all able to hear? Can I get a 1 if y'all can still hear? Thank you.
Have you also come to recognize
Hey, Yvette. Hey, long
Light
time
fellow
no
with the American
see.
flag on his left shoulder
Hey.
as Robert Long from the Memphis Fire Department?
Yes.
It is the Memphis police officers, the Scorpion unit that violently beat to death Tyre Nichols. This is their state trial. They've already been convicted on the federal.
Since we're doing it for everybody else, you see the guy with the beanie on his head, and he's got his left thumb underneath his bulletproof vest. Do you recognize that to be Darius B?
Yes.
You're welcome.
By the way, how many active critical scenes, fatality shootings, have you been to in your career in law enforcement?
Well, I'd be lying if I told you I knew exactly how many, but quite a few.
More than 100?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know the term, what hot wash means?
No?
Adrenaline dump?
Oh, yes.
As you see these officers interacting with everybody in a, I don't know, a weird kind of vibe, they're talking, is that something you would expect to find at a critical incident at the conclusion of it?
Yes, I've heard it many times. It's a release from all the tension that they've gone through.
Your Honor, I would just ask that Mr. Seamock remember it's his witness, he's leading quite a bit.
Rephrase the question.
I'd respond that I'm not, but I'll continue. I'll do it the right way. I've done it long enough. I can figure it out. You've seen Mr. Smith in this video, is that right?
Yes.
That last statement made by that last voice. First, do you recognize the voice that
Yes.
was just heard?
Yes, Justin Smith.
And did you hear what he asked? I'll be glad to replay it for you again if you'd like.
Would you please?
All right. Because I don't want to lead. We'll just take as long as we need, okay?
Yes.
Did you hear that?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I can't pick that up.
Do you need to move closer?
I could try.
Did you hear that Mr. Smith asked a question of someone?
Yes, I could, but I could not hear his articulation of what he said.
All right, I'll move on.
Okay.
All right. Without leading you, sir, do you see a man with a very disheveled-looking beanie on his head standing there? Second man in from the right margin.
Yes.
Who is that?
I believe that is Lieutenant Smith.
Thank you. The record reflects he's identified a man with a beanie on his head arriving on the scene at 20:43:35 as Lieutenant Smith. Proceeding.
Hello? Say it again, I think you did.
When you pause, do you see Mr. Tyre Nichols in that image?
Yes, I do.
And what position is he in?
He's in a seated position against the side of Justin Smith's patrol car.
We are at 20:44:26. Moving forward. Did you just see Tyre Nichols make a movement?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you see a black man with a baseball hat on, and you see the white man you had earlier identified as Robert Long of the Memphis Fire Department. Is that right?
Yes.
As Mr. Nichols fell over to his right, did you see the medical providers attempt to catch him?
No.
You want to watch it again?
No, I can answer a question.
Well, I want to watch it.
He said, I want to watch it again. He said he want to.
Is Mr. Nichols conversing with the two medical providers?
Doesn't sound like it.
You see anybody attempt to keep his head from hitting the ground?
Yes. Pulled the bag away so that allowed him to just drop to the ground.
Going forward at 20:44:33.
Charlie, right in here.
Were you able to capture or see with your eyes the suspect just a moment ago?
Yes.
Was he still laying on his side?
Yes, it remained there.
What is the recovery or supine position when it comes to emergency medical treatment?
It would be still upright against the car.
As he was originally?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols there in that? Do you see Mr. Nichols?
No. I think he's
Do you see
still
the
laying
flashlight?
down.
What?
I said, I can't see him up against the car. I can only see his, what appears to be part of his body still laying on the ground.
Keep an eye on it. Bear with me. Is that better? Do you see Mr. Tyre Nichols' head right there?
I do.
Where is it?
It's still on the ground right next to the bag that was pulled out from Linda's
That was
head.
it. 2045:48 where I pointed it out earlier, but you do see it, right?
I do.
Move on. I have played it through the Wilson body cam through 20:45:48. I'm going to show you, but before I show you, I want to ask you, I know you've already said it, but out of an abundance of caution, did you review all body-worn cameras involved in this investigation?
Yes, I did.
Did you review Officer Martin's body-worn camera regarding the attempted traffic stop?
Yes.
I would draw your attention to the screen for you to confirm or deny that this is Emmett Martin's attempt at a traffic stop. All right, I have stopped the Axon body cam counter at 20:22:25. In the bottom left-hand corner toolbar, it shows 42 seconds from its beginning. Is that correct or incorrect?
Correct.
So if you will you monitor the best you can the length of time Emmett Martin had his blue lights on? All right, it's off. It appears the blue lights are off. Correct or incorrect?
They're off, yes.
And what I see on the screen is the Axon body camera counter of 20:22:56. And in the bottom left or bottom toolbar, it shows 1 minute and 14 seconds have elapsed. So as not to suggest to you the answer, can you do the mathematics, please, and tell me how long Mr. Martin had his blue lights on?
Well, it looks like it's over a minute. I can't add that right up, but
Do you remember the first number we started at?
yeah, it started
42?
at 27 seconds and it wound up at 54 seconds.
Without leading you. First number that the record will reflect that I told you blue lights come out was at 42 seconds in the lower left-hand corner.
Correct.
We are now at 1:14. So would that be, give or take, 30 seconds?
Yes, pretty close.
Continuing on. That video ends at 20:23:15, a total elapsed time of 1 minute and 32 seconds of that traffic, or what you just had depicted for you on the screen. Is that right?
That's correct.
By the way, Judge, that what we just saw is part of that collective exhibit, but had not been shown prior to today. Is that right? All right, sir. It's a long video. Very important to us here in this courtroom. So I'm going to play for you the MPD poll cam. Have you reviewed this poll cam video before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times have you reviewed this poll cam video?
Seems like over about 50, 60 to 100 times.
All right. Do you have some points within the poll cam that you wanted to call my attention to so that you can tell me to hit stop?
I do.
Okay, I just want to make sure. We don't want to tie up anyone's time by fishing around for it, okay?
Right.
So I'm going to hit play, and you tell me what you need me to do.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Okay.
And the spots you're going to stop us at are matters within your expertise. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Before we get in this line of questions, as it may be a little bit, is there anybody in the juror that needs a break?
Are they finna keep going?
Seeing none, all right, you can proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we momentarily stopped it at, when you know it, locked off up there. You're just going to trust me, right? All right, hitting play at, what is that up there in the top of the screen where we can't see? What kind of is it? Go away. Judge, the problem is, for some reason, it's probably my fault, but there's something that says connected to Elmo Cast, and we probably need to get that off so that we can see the, just take it off full screen. All right. Right here. It's still up there. See it up there? Yeah. Can I drag it?
Whew.
If so, you can get $250 to spend at Taco Bell completely free. And I can tell you right now, this is going to upset a ton.
Mr. Stain, feel free to sit back in your seat. That's great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Nietzsche. All right. What? If we want to go off this version, because earlier when I was on this version, somebody said big screen it, so all right. We are at 203235. I want to ask you something. I've stopped it at 203326. Trying to anyway. Do you see lights reflecting off that brick mailbox cover?
Yes,
In your studies of these videos, did that indicate anything to you?
yes.
What was it?
Indicate there's a vehicle coming in and it's reflecting off from the headlights.
Based upon the, what I'm gonna call the wristwatch time of 20:33:31, that's 8:33 p.m. and 31 seconds, is that right?
Yes,
Based upon timelines that we know from first traffic stop, the 6705 pole cam.
Thank you,
and-
Yvette.
And the call went out from Mills chasing the suspect. Is it safe to say that the confrontation with Tyre Nichols is actually going on right now outside this screen?
yes,
All right. And so that the jury understands how it is that this camera is moving around. Where is this camera controlled from?
that particular camera is controlled from a pole mounted up in the sky. And it is not a fixed position. It is what I mentioned earlier, a pan and tilt. It can move. But this particular view is off to the left and it will be cycled
You
to the right.
misunderstood my question. Who
Big idea.
panned it? I said you misunderstood my question.
Yes, sir.
Who panned it and who tilted it?
It would be somebody in the control center,
Back at headquarters.
at headquarters.
That's what I was trying to-
Not at the scene, yes.
All right, hit the play at 203331.
And pause.
Did I do it at the right time?
Okay. That's where it'll start.
Okay. Told me to hit pause. Tell me if you see, as for what you're here testifying about as an expert, do you see anything significant in that frame?
What I see, obviously, where the cars are parked, and I see the officers, three officers standing. Can't quite make out from, I see the other officer, I believe that's Officer Mills off to the right-hand side. The other side of Justin Smith's patrol car.
I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. You see that car that's pointing left and right?
Yes, sir.
Is that the car that the headlight reflections were on the mailbox?
I believe it was, yes.
And see the car is pointing the different direction toward that Mercedes camper?
Yes,
Whose car is that?
Justin Smith.
All right. Next, see the fella that's standing like this, kind of split-legged, with his back to the camera?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize that person?
Officer Martin.
Okay. Now, do you see the fella just up and to the left from Emmett Martin that has tennis shoes on?
Yes, that's Justin Smith.
You see the fella on the ground? We know who that is. And the fella standing just behind the fella on the ground, who is that?
That's Officer Bean.
All right. Then you see a bald-headed fella far to the right behind Emmett Martin's car. Do you see that person?
Yes,
And who is that?
Officer Mills.
All right, so right now, just for the record, what officers are on the scene at 203348? Run through them again.
Officer Martin, Officer Mills, Officer Bean, and Officer Smith,
And of course, the suspect.
and Mr. Nichols, yes.
You did say today is a yes day, right? Yes. Rematch at the bowling lanes? Thought you never asked. Can I get a pizza in the shirt?
We stop it at 3405, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, we'll do my best.
Pause. Very good.
What of significance is in that scene for your testimony today?
What was significant to me is I was able to see two officers depart from the scene. One would be Officer Mills on the right-hand side, and then Officer Martin going towards his vehicle, which you'll see at the driver's side, right front fender, or left front fender. And you have two officers that are still bending over Mr. Nichols. One is Officer Smith, the other one's Officer Payne. And then during that time frame that eclipsed, Officer Smith stood up, put his head up in the air, walked Mr. Nichols.
Please hit the
while
like
Mr.
button.
Payne was of that particular stop sign, street sign, and remained there for a short period of time, went back to the position next to Officer Bean and actually placed his hands, paused for a minute, and then bent right back over to Mr. Nichols and began to try to do something to control him.
To control who?
Mr. Nichols.
In that image that you had me stop on, are Mr. Nichols' hands secured?
No, they're not.
Is Mr. Nichols bladed? Bladed on one hip?
Yes, he's on one side of his body, which would be the right side at this point.
And is there any significance of a suspect blading his body? If so, what is that significance?
Yeah, it is significant to me in terms of, I've seen it before with other suspects trying to control them. It's a position where it could be for an exit to get away from another officer. Is you position your body both for fight. and other video frames.
Thank
is
you
what I'm talking about.
for the people who
We're gonna
hit the
play
like button.
At 20:34:05.
Whew,
and I
I'm
believe
sorry
you
for
can
the
stop.
delay. I had to get all the extras out.
19, correct.
Just so the jury and all of us, the person walking back up to Nichols on the ground, that his back is to us, is that who?
That's Officer Martin.
All right. I'm sorry for stopping early. Stopped early again, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
What did Martin just do?
But that's okay, we can do that.
What did Martin just do?
He just did a soccer-type kick to his upper part of his body. Can't see exactly where that landed, but in that direction.
But my client, Justin Smith, can you see what he was doing while that was going on?
Yes, he's still bending over Mr. Nichols at the time that the strike was made.
Bending over, doing what?
Well, I can't tell exactly what his hands are doing, but he's trying to control Mr. Nichols on the ground with his hands.
Hitting play at 34:14.
All right, stop.
Went too far?
That's fine.
Okay. What is significant of where you had me stop?
In addition to that, what you saw is the movement from Mr. Nichols. He went from his right side back to his back side, and then he'll flip over again over to his right side. And then you saw the positioning of Officer Martin. To me, that's pretty important because I watched him throughout this entire set of frames, is what he was doing and how he was moving as the officers were trying to control him. Him meaning Mr. Nichols.
Based upon your expert analysis of video imaging, police tactics, Justin Smith, you see him there?
I do.
His legs are spread, he's over beyond 90 degrees. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Can he see? Is it even possible for him to see Emmett Martin from that spot?
In my opinion, no.
All right. Moving on from 20:34:21, I think you want me to stop at 20:34:50. Is that right?
That's correct.
We saw another kick there, didn't we?
Yes, you
As
did.
we strike that question.
Pause.
All right. I did.
It's okay.
During that last snippet, for lack of a better word, you had me stop at 20:34:52. What of significance, in your opinion?
Once again, it shows the continual movement by Mr. Nichols on the ground. And he wasn't passive at that point. He was continuing to resist. And I can tell what Officer Smith is doing. He's trying to grab his left hand and apply a handcuff to it. And I think it's either at this point or shortly thereafter, he manages to get one handcuff on that left wrist.
So the record is clear. Who's he? Who
He, again, meaning Mr.
Justin.
Nichols. And he meaning Officer Smith.
Okay, so again, so the record's clear. What police officer's got the handcuff trying to get it on Mr. Nichols' left arm?
Justin Smith.
And do we see that in this image?
We do. I see it, yes.
All right, I'm hit play at 34:52, and I think you want me to stop at 35:19. Is that right?
That's correct, sir. Stop.
All right, stop. During that snippet from 20:35:05 there-ish to 20:35:19, what did you see of significance from the standpoint of your expertise?
Without having to go frame by frame for you to see it, what I saw was Mr. Nichols position his body off the right-hand side and start to move his lower part of his legs, his left leg. And I saw Officer Smith pull up on the handcuff. He's got one hand on the left wrist. And he's trying to position the body, excuse me, he's trying to position Mr.
Who is he? If you use the word he.
I said Officer Smith was trying to position Tyre Nichols into a forward motion onto the ground. And as he was trying to do that, you'll see a struggle where the arm will go back up again. That's Mr. Nichols pushing off in one direction against Officer Smith. And then Tyre Nichols managed to get up off the ground in a rather quick manner before Justin Smith could push him on the ground, and began to move to his left. And
Move to whose left?
Move to his left.
Who's his? Who is his?
Still talking about Tyre Nichols moving towards his left. Okay? You can also see the position of Justin Smith's left foot going off to the left-hand side. And they follow Mr. Nichols, they meaning the other officers, which would be Officer Martin and Officer Mills, around into a counterclockwise position. And you'll see, if we were to go back and play that over again, you'll see Officer Bean grabbing a hold of Mr. Nichols and pulling him backwards as Justin Smith is trying to grab both of his hands now up front and pulling him in another direction. So in essence, he basically made a circle and it was being pulled back, right back towards the position where he was initially on the ground. And then you can see Officer Martin circle around the patrol car. And I use the term almost stalking him, because he initially was on the ground earlier in the frames that you saw. You could tell Officer Martin was circling, trying to get in and do something to Mr. Nichols, whether he was trying to grab him or whatnot. Can't tell through the video. But finally, when he reached around the other side, meaning Martin, Officer Smith was positioned with a left hand, while Officer Bean had Mr. Nichols' middle section. That's when Officer Martin struck Mr. Nichols in the head or in the facial region. And then Mr. Nichols was directed by Officer Smith and Officer Bean off to the side as Mr. Nichols was starting to walk away. And then you'll see Justin Smith bracing his leg on the ground to stop Mr. Nichols, and that's when the tape ended.
All right. It has been argued, you've been here in court as an expert, it has been argued that Justin Smith was somehow holding Tyre Nichols' arm to his side to permit Emmett Martin to do what he did. You've heard that testimony or heard that argument, correct?
I did.
Based upon your expert analysis of this video and the actions of Justin Smith, is that true?
No, it's not true.
By the way, you see the two stripes, reflective stripes on Justin, his bulletproof vest?
Yes, I do see him now.
Okay, you see the two reflective stripes?
I do.
What?
I do, yes.
And you also see Justin's left leg, left foot, is that right?
That's correct.
Does the positioning of Justin's rib cage and Justin's positioning of his left leg have any significance to you?
Yes, I believe he's being pulled forward
By who?
by Mr. Nichols.
Was that the last snippet you wanted me to stop?
Yes, it was, sir.
Now, as part of your expertise or your in evaluating these cases, do you direct, oversee, and have prepared animations for demonstrating to juries what was going on with specificity?
Yes, I have.
And in order to lay the groundwork, lay the foundation, did you do that in this case?
I did.
And could you please describe for the jury and for the judge, what is that process of taking what we've seen video-wise and turning it into specific animation?
Yes. What we try to do in those animations is take the original footage, such as the poll cam footage that we just watched, and take it by frame, and superimpose it over an animated figure, and then rotate that figure in the same direction that the officer was moving into. So it's not just the made-up figure without a baseline. The actual figure that we're inserting over the image is taken off of a frame of the body, either a body camera or off of the poll cam.
So if we see a pink or a blue figure that we haven't seen before, are those figures overlaid over the actual images on the video?
One on top of the other, yes, sir.
With your own permission, I'd like to play. Would it be helpful for you to watch what you had prepared to explain your positions to the jury?
Before we do, is the state seeing this?
Yeah.
No, you're.
Okay, I don't want to argue with it. I don't want to go back and look for an email that I sent, but I'll be glad to take a break and show it to them. How's that?
And that's going to be fine. Ladies and gentlemen, your lunch has arrived or is about to arrive, so we're going to, before we get into this next line of question, we're going to go ahead and excuse you all for your lunch.
I'll be back with another live after lunch, y'all. Please hit the like button if you didn't hit it coming in. Hit it going out. Bye.